All right, thanks for staying with us. Of course, the big story today, Dr Nandipha Magudumana's lawyers arguing before the Free State High Court in Bloemfontein that she was extradited and not deported back to South Africa. Now, advocate Anton Katz has told the court that his client was extradited, which is unlawful based on international law standards and policies. Now, the lawyer also told the court that Tanzanian officials handed Magudumana over to South African government in what he calls a disguised extradition. He says, according to the definition of deportation, there's no handing over process, and it only applies in an extradition. And Magudumana launched an urgent application to ask the court to declare her arrest in Tanzania unlawful. And of course, someone who's been watching this particular case very closely for us is our senior reporter, Chriselda Lewis, who joins us live now. Chriselda, let's start, of course, with what is happening in court. The lawyers arguing that she was extradited and not deported back to South Africa.
Well, Bongiwe, you have that absolutely right. Dr Nandipha Magudumana's lawyers say her being brought back to South Africa was a forced and somewhat disguised extradition and not a deportation. They argue that South African authorities colluded with Tanzania to bring her back. Her lawyers argue that deportation is somewhat a unilateral act or singular act, if I can, Bongiwe. But in this case, her lawyers say there was an agreement between these two countries, South Africa and Tanzania, and that means, according to them, it falls within the terrain of an extradition. Advocate Anton Katz, SC, representing Dr Nandipha Magudumana, also argued, on Home Affairs' version that Magudumana and Bester were handed over while they were on South African soil in Tanzania. To use the words of Advocate Anton Katz, SC, he said, and I quote, "It is nonsense," a close quote. The insinuation, he said, that the premises of the High Commission in Tanzania is South African soil is incorrect in international law. That's what they're basically arguing. And then again, on the other hand, the lawyer representing the South African Police Service and the National Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Snellenberg SC, on the other hand, basically saying that Dr Nandipha Magudumana has now changed her version. Her version in court is different to what she said in her founding papers, in which he says nowhere in those founding papers of Dr Nandipha Magudumana does she speak of this disguised extradition that we're now hearing about in court this morning. Snellenberg also argued that police, came to this court to answer the allegations made by Dr Nandipha Magudumana, and that's what they've done here. The lawyer basically also representing SAP saying that, arguing that this court, should think also about the alleged victims of Dr Magudumana. But Home Affairs, you'd recall, who also joined as the sixth respondent, you'd recall, was in charge of the deportation process and basically say that there was nothing wrong with the two countries collaborating, and that does not constitute collusion, as argued by Dr Nandipha Magudumana's lawyers. So they contend, that Tanzanian police arrested Magudumana and Bester, and it is them that said that the two should be escorted. So this is, of course, to rebut Bongiwe Magudumana questioning what that high-level delegation was doing in Tanzania. Just to unpack a bit more about this, let's be joined now by Mkosi Khadebe, who's been assisting the SABC throughout the day to try and get a grip of events here. Mr. Khadebe, thank you very much indeed for your time once again. I want us to talk about what we heard in court today. Here we have Dr Nandipha Magudumana coming with what, SAPS and the National Director of Public Prosecutions and Home Affairs says is a new version. Nowhere in her founding papers did she even utter anything relating to this disguised extradition. Talk us through the significance of that.
Thank you for having me, Ms. Lewis. Yes, the doctor is persisting in her case. Her lawyers have argued today that indeed that her arrest was unlawful. They insist with saying that she was abducted, and they take it further to say the South African authorities colluded with the Tanzanian authorities to achieve what they call a disguised extradition. They are saying that their client was never deported. You will remember that SABC and Home Affairs are also insisting that no arrest was done by the South African counterpart, but the arrest was conducted by the Tanzanian authorities. All they did was to participate in a process which they call handing over, which became quite controversial today in court as to what it means, this handing over. The lawyers for the doctor are saying this is a collusion, their client was extradited, and the court should find in their favor.
I'm going to put you on the spot because we don't have much time.
Indeed.
Which way is it likely to go based on what we heard in court today? I'm afraid I'm going to have to put you on the spot there, Mr. Radebe. What does it look like?
As a lawyer, I have to be cautious, and as an analyst, I have to show a balanced view. However, as I said when I started in my analysis of this matter, I maintain that this application is ill-conceived, and according to me, it is likely to fail.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Mkosi Radebe joining us throughout the day here on SABC News, unpacking, some of the legalities there, Bongiwe, that we need to traverse in this case. Of course, judgment will be handed down in this matter on Monday. That is the 5th of June. The presiding judge indicating, of course, he now needs to collate everything that has been said inside this court, and judgment on this application by Dr Nandipha Magudumana to declare her arrest in Tanzania unlawful. That decision will be handed down at 10 o'clock in this court on Monday.